Our next speaker is Manolo De Los Santos, who is a researcher and political activist. He's worked in the Organization of Solidarity and education programs to challenge the US regime of illegal sanctions and blockades. He was also based in Cuba for some years, and he has been working on building international networks of people's movements and organizations. In 2018, he became the founding director of the People's Forum in New York City, a movement incubator for working class communities to build unity across historic lines of division at home and abroad. He also works as a researcher for the Tricontinental Institute and writes for the Globetrotter and People's Dispatch. Manolo, please go ahead.
Thank you, Radhika, for that wonderful introduction. I'm honored to join all of you. It's even a greater honor to be here among some of my own teachers, people who I've studied and read in this ongoing battle in defense of Cuba. I think everyone here has already spoken, I think, very clearly to the fact that there is an ongoing war against Cuba. There's a war against Cuba for so many reasons, because it has a socialist project, because it defends its sovereignty and independence, because Cuba in many ways is the base for the dreams and projects of justice around the world. But I would want to talk more specifically about the fact that this campaign of maximum pressure being waged by the Biden administration right now takes on, if not new characteristics, but uses more openly new weapons in its arsenal. The fact is that at this point, Cuba is not faced not just by economic warfare, which has been in place for close to 60 years now. Cuba is not faced only by the 243 measures imposed by the Trump administration, but there's a full set of war tools being used against Cuba right now that prey on the internal factors, the internal weaknesses and issues that Cuba faces every day. Struggles around organizing young people, issues around the internet, race, LGBTQ questions, gender, poverty, all being used to make or create the illusion that Cuba is a failed state. All used to create the idea that somehow in 62 years of revolution, Cuba has made no progress or has not advanced enough. According to the standards of who? I question the hypocrisy of the US government, but of the international, sometimes progressive forces who weigh Cuba or put Cuba on a pedestal that it doesn't necessarily need to be on. I actually want to defend Cuba's ongoing potential to achieve full social justice under socialism. I want to defend Cuba's right to make mistakes, to commit errors.
That's right.
The right of Cuba to actually live out its full promise of revolution, which means changing everything that must be changed, like Fidel often talked about, but recognizing that that is a popular process that has many steps forward as it does backwards. Right now, the ongoing threats around Cuba, so visibly seen on social media, on the internet, will seek to maximize or put greater focus on what seem to be Cuba's great weaknesses. But I celebrate these. I celebrate these because these actually demonstrate the vivaciousness, the resilience of the Cuban people. The fact that, yes, they're struggling to tackle racism. Yes, the fact that they're struggling to end homophobia and transphobia. It's a struggle to actually build a different world. And I'm willing to put my life on the line to defend that project. Because at this point, Cuba needs the world, but we need Cuba even more. Where would we be in our own projects of liberation if it wasn't for the Cuban Revolution? Where would we be without Cuba as consciousness of the world, constantly reminding us that healthcare is not a privilege, but a human right? Where would we be without Cuba as the lightning rod for new and invigorating projects for socialism around the world? All different in their approaches and their tactics and strategies. In many ways, I would often refer to Cuba as that old home for the Bolsheviks that re-energizes us and pushes us forward in today's struggle. Knowing that so much has been said already in this panel, wonderfully convened, that brings so many voices from around the world, I would only add to that call that says, let Cuba live. But in order for us to let Cuba live, it's not just about stopping or saying we are against the aggression of the US empire, but it's also about building the broadest movement possible of all the necessary forces on the planet willing to stand with Cuba. It often means that we will have to create the strategies that seem impossible in order to make sure that Cuba itself doesn't feel that it's alone, but also to remind empire, and not just the US, but Canada, Britain, and other leading forces on the planet, that we will not be willing to see Cuba sacrificed on their altar of capital. Just to end, I think about the next book that Vijay, Prashad, and I are editing, which is a selection of speeches by Fidel Castro in moments of crisis. It's coming out in a few weeks, and I hope all of you get a copy. But to me, one of the things I've learned the most just from editing the book, from rereading Fidel's speaking in those moments in which Cuba was being fiercely attacked militarily, seeing its young people being killed, seeing Cuba face the special period alone in many ways, seeing Cuba have to face the dark night of neoliberalism in Latin America. His constant optimism, his constant belief that we will turn all setbacks into victory is what keeps me here standing today with all of you and with Cuba. So I agree with my friends from No Cold War, from all the different organizations that are here, that we will not allow Cuba to be defeated. We will not allow Cuba to continue to be blockaded. We will not allow Cuba to continue to be silenced. We will stand with her always. Let Cuba live.